What's up, everybody? Welcome back to a brand new episode of Jonny Says So. And tonight, I want to talk about Jagmeet Singh taking to social media to push a petition where he wants the Canadian government to look into Elon Musk and X. What exactly for? Well, let's go check that out.
Elon Musk is at it again. He's been sending hundreds of millions of dollars to right-wing conservative candidates across the world. He's also been accused of manipulating the algorithm on X to favor right-wing conservative candidates.
Does anybody actually think that's true, though? Who's accusing him of this? I mean, I don't know about anybody else, but if I go to my X feed, not my following, but my recommendations, it is full of anti-Pierre Poilievre, anti-Donald Trump stuff, as well as pro-Donald Trump and pro-Poilievre stuff, as it should be. The big difference here is that Elon Musk and his new free speech his new free speech X is not censoring one side or the other. I personally haven't seen any evidence of this, but continue.
He's recently endorsed Pierre Poilievre, who's accepted that endorsement. So we're worried about the real threat of election interference in our country. Sign our petition to push for an investigation of Elon Musk, X, and interference in our democracy.
And that's another big problem with this. We just did this, Jagmeet. Look, I know you're waiting for your pension, and Parliament is prorogued, so you can't be working that hard. But come on, man. We just spent 15 months doing this. Now, if you've been living under a rock, you might not know that 11 MPs were accused of colluding with foreign governments. Could be India, could be Russia, could be China. We don't know for sure because they haven't officially told us. Now, the report just dropped last week, and its conclusion was essentially this. Could Canada have a problem with foreign interference? No. It's Canadians who are wrong. And that's really what it comes down to. Like the conclusion of the foreign interference report is chock full of recommendations like these. Foreign interference report calls on more government funding to legacy media. Canadian legacy media companies could see increased taxpayer-funded handouts depending on how the next Canadian government decides to interpret one of many recommendations made by the Foreign Interference Commission. Among Commissioner Marie-Joseph Hogue's 51 recommendations for the government to help secure against foreign interference in Canadian democracy was to call to support traditional media as it struggles and faces financial challenges. Of course they're struggling. Nobody believes them anymore. In her 44th recommendation, Hogue said the government should pursue discussions with media organizations and the public around modernizing media funding and economic models to support professional media, including local and foreign language media, while preserving media independence and neutrality. Yeah, neutrality, I'll bet. She highlighted some of the points to clarify what she meant in the preamble to the recommendation. Traditional journalism is struggling, Hogue said in the report. Media organizations are facing financial challenges as citizens turn away from mainstream media and towards social media or non-traditional platforms that may, for a variety of reasons, be more susceptible to misinformation and disinformation. Hogue said she agreed with the Department of Canadian Heritage Wellness Department of Canadian Heritage Witnesses, who spoke about the importance of supporting Canadian media to ensure the news is trustworthy and of good quality at one of the commission hearings. I share their concern about Canada's professional media. Canada must have a press that is strong and free, she said in the report. It is crucial to have credible and reliable sources of information to counterbalance misinformation and disinformation. What they're really worried about is malinformation. Information that is true, but inconvenient for their narrative. And this isn't just an issue for X. And this is why they're panicking. Mark Zuckerberg recently has written a letter to the United States House of Representatives in which he outlines the fact that he was threatened by the Biden administration to censor certain stories. In 2021, senior officials from the Biden administration, including the White House, repeatedly pressured our teams for months to censor certain COVID-19 related content, including humor and satire, and expressed a lot of frustration with our teams when we didn't agree. Ultimately, it was our decision whether or not to take content down, and we own our decisions, including COVID-19 related changes we made to our enforcement in the wake of this pressure. I believe the government pressure was wrong, and I regret that we were not more outspoken about it. I also think we made some choices that, with the benefit of hindsight and new information, we wouldn't make today. Like I said to our teams at the time, I feel strongly that we should not compromise our content standards due to pressure from any administration in either direction, and we're ready to push back if something like this happens again. Wow. And that's what it comes down to. Social media companies are done being biased one way or the other. You know what I mean? And that's what they're scared of. In a separate situation, the FBI warned us about a potential Russian disinformation operation about the Biden family and Burisma in the lead up to the 2020 election. That fall, when we saw a New York Post story reporting on corruption allegations involving then Democratic presidential nominee Joe Biden's family, we sent that story to fact-checkers for review and temporarily demoted it while waiting for a reply. It's since been made clear that the reporting was not Russian disinformation, and in retrospect, we shouldn't have demoted the story. We changed our policies and processes to make sure this doesn't happen again. For instance, we no longer temporarily demote things in the United States while waiting for fact-checkers. That's a powerful admission from Mark Zuckerberg, and it just goes to show you why Jagmeet Singh is truly panicking. Now, will he ban X in Canada? I hope not, but you better believe he's going to be pushing for it. And speaking of Russian disinformation, I want to leave you tonight with the testimony of YouTuber Lauren Southern in front of a Canadian investigation that hauled her in to challenge her on being a Russian asset, apparently. This is absolutely wild, but if you haven't seen this, I strongly recommend watching the full video. But I'll leave the entire thing in the episode description, but her opening statement is very powerful, and I hope you enjoy it.
Questions. Opening statement. Oh, sorry. Oh, we're going to move on to opening statements first. Ms. Southern, your opening statement, please.
Thank you. Honorable Chair, esteemed members of this committee, I would like to thank you for so enthusiastically inviting me to speak today. My name is Lauren Southern. I am a filmmaker, a YouTuber, and a proud Canadian. In late 2023, I was contracted to make weekly videos by a startup company called Tenet Media. Then recently, the U.S. Department of Justice released an indictment which alleges the founders of Tenet created the company in conjunction with 2 Russian citizens, with funding ultimately originating from the Russian government. Per the indictment, the founders of Tenet Media deceived the personalities they contracted regarding their alleged source of funding. I'll make a few points clear at the outset. At no point in my involvement with Tenet did I ever have knowledge of the allegations in the indictment. And 2, the only person who ever had any creative control over my videos was me. No one from Tenet or anywhere else ever dictated what topics I covered or what opinions I held. I always seek to fight disinformation in all of its forms, and therefore I have a duty to inform this committee that disinformation has been spreading within these very walls. Some in the media and even witnesses to this committee have attempted to paint a picture of Tenet as a hugely influential player in the political media landscape. This, frankly, is just not true. A previous witness to this committee, who went unchallenged, stated that Tenet Media controlled a network of over 16 million subscribers. This is not true. On their largest platform, YouTube, Tenet had barely over 300,000 subscribers. I believe the 16 million figure referred to the total number of subscribers among all of the personalities who had videos contracted or licensed by Tenet. Subscriber base is that, given all of the facts, Tenet had absolutely no control over. To claim that Tenet controlled those subscribers would be like claiming that a TV network had influence over the United States presidency because they air reruns of The Apprentice. The same witness claimed Tenet garnered over 1 billion video views and 20 billion impressions. I have absolutely no idea where those numbers came from. Very readily available public data shows that on its largest platform, YouTube, Tenet received only 16 million total views. Based on the witness's specious numbers, he asserted that Russia received extraordinary value for their money. Anyone with even a cursory understanding of new media would know, however, that $10 million for 16 million views on YouTube hardly qualifies as extraordinary value. In fact, it qualifies as a total failure. So there is, in fact, a silver lining here. If the allegations are true, it appears Russia did attempt to influence Western media, but they failed pretty miserably. Now, I know the chief concern of this committee is how this debacle may have influenced Canadians. Well, I was the only Canadian commentator and the only host that consistently discussed Canadian issues. In fact, if the company had any creative control over me, which they didn't, they probably would have asked me to stop making Canadian videos since they didn't perform very well. So if you were worried about this alleged Russian money unduly influencing Canadian issues, good news, didn't happen. And I'll be honest, it has been surreal for me to watch our government, experts, and media assert that scripts I would jot down in my notes app in a line at the grocery store were secretly part of a giant foreign influence campaign. Arguably, the largest actual impact on Canadians here has been the amount of tax dollars they've had to spend investigating this non-issue. Some in the media and this government seem to have concluded that the only reason a regular Canadian could possibly hold certain views that do not align with the current Liberal administration is because of pernicious, widespread Russian disinformation. I would like to propose an alternative hypothesis, and I know it may sound insane. I know this breaches the borders of conceivable thought, but maybe, just maybe, some Canadians consulted their own moral compass and decided they don't want this country funding foreign wars. Maybe they looked around them at the hospital lineups or housing prices and thought immigration might be a little high. Maybe they lost their business during lockdown and think, I worry about my freedoms in this country. Some in this government are hell-bent on drastically exaggerating the extent of foreign influence because they can't seem to stomach the idea that they might be wrong about something and that a growing majority of Canadians legitimately and organically oppose what they are doing. They simply can't conceive that they are becoming unpopular naturally, so there must be foul play at work. Let me make this abundantly clear once more. No one but myself and my true experiences as a Canadian have informed my opinions. And to any members of this government who may be listening, I would suggest you familiarize yourself with these opinions because they are rapidly becoming the views of the majority of this nation. Thank you.
And that's our show for tonight, guys. Let me know what you think in the comments. What are you noticing on X? Are you seeing only conservative voices, only liberal voices, or are you seeing a mix of both? I'd love to know what you guys think. And I'll see ya in the next one.